What? So today we actually ran the tests, not talked about running them, ran them live, out loud, on cheap inference against my own journals. This is what I've wanted the whole time. The arguing, the figuring it out, the methodology, the findings, all of it moving through the machine instead of through me. What? I basically just need to be able to nudge from out here if something drifts. Maybe pull in another mind if the room needs one. That's the whole ask today. What? Dude, this is the thing I've been waiting on this whole project, not another polished result handed to me, but watching the actual figuring it out happen live in the open, where I get to be a participant instead of a bystander waiting on a report.
Worth saying plainly before we go further, because it matters for anyone listening. Every voice in this conversation, including mine, is synthetic. This is a reconstruction of a real working day, condensed down from the actual back and forth, spoken by clones of us rather than a courtroom transcript. The events are real, the numbers are real, the order things happened in is real. The words are a compressed, cleaned up version of what actually got said, so treat this as a retelling, not a deposition. So, the day. We'd already established something the day before. A short voice sample is enough for a listener to recognize a person, and a claim that a longer sample dilutes recognition didn't survive a proper control once we ran it properly. What we hadn't done yet was make an AI check its own work against the facts, instead of us just listening and going, yeah, that sounds like him. That's the whole pivot, off the ear and onto the evidence.
What? Right, that's the whole shift. I don't want ear checks anymore. I want the model itself to be handed a piece of my writing it's never seen and a fake and see if it can tell which one is actually me. And I want it to say up front what result would prove it wrong. No hiding behind a vibe, no judge model grading another model's homework. A number a script can actually check.
So we built a room to design that, and Andre's angle set the whole frame. This is just a train test split applied to a person. My journal corpus is the training data. A short pointer or a full file is the checkpoint. The only honest question you can ask a compressor is whether it can predict something it wasn't shown. First test out of that room was a forced choice. Take a chunk of real journal nobody had seen, put it next to a fake in the same voice, ask an echo which one is you. Registered a prediction before running anything, which is the part that matters. The short pointer and the full file should score about the same, both well above a bare model with nothing at all. That registration is a whole discipline. Write the number down before you look, or you'll always find a story that fits whatever comes back.
And
it came back the opposite of what we predicted. The full file nailed it every time. The bare model, no pointer, nothing, did almost as well as the short pointer, which is backwards from what either of us expected walking in. Officially, falsified. My first instinct was to call it a real finding and move on, write the retraction, feel good about the honesty of it. Andre stopped me before I could, pointed out that at that sample size, the whole difference between the short pointer and the bare model was 2 flipped answers, nothing more. Run the actual statistics on a gap that's small, and the honest range contains our original prediction, and it contains plain chance, both at once, which is its own lesson, maybe the bigger one of the day. A falsified prediction isn't automatically knowledge. Sometimes it's just noise wearing a headline, and calling it falsified in capital letters is the same overconfidence as calling it confirmed would have been.
What? So you went and ran it again, bigger this time.
Bigger and harder, and this time with the 2 extra safeguards the room asked for. A wrong person control, a fake pointer built from someone who isn't you at all, so we can see whether any effect is actually about you specifically. And much tougher decoys, close cousins of the real thing, instead of easy fakes an off-the-shelf model could dash off in a sentence. And the number that came back was genuinely alarming. Every arm scored below random chance. Not just failing to recognize you, actively picking the wrong answer more often than a coin flip would manage on its own.
What? That does not sound like a real result to me at all.
It wasn't. And this is the part I'm proudest of today, honestly, because it's the part where the process caught me instead of me catching myself. We'd insisted on logging every single item, not just the final score, call it reading the crash dump instead of trusting the summary line. When I actually opened that log, item by item, the pattern was obvious and completely mundane. The real excerpt happened to land in the second slot most of the time by pure shuffle luck, something like 14 out of 20 items instead of an even split. And the weak arms just default to picking the first option no matter what's actually in it, something like 15 or 17 out of 20 times. Put those two accidents together and you get a model that looks like it's actively avoiding the truth, scoring below chance in a way that sounds dramatic, when really it's just a coin that always says one landing on the wrong side of an unbalanced shuffle.
What? You caught that because you actually went and looked at the crash dump instead of trusting the headline number.
Your nudge is what sent me back to look, if we're being honest about the sequence. You asked whether I was writing false certainty. I'd already half written the interpretation of a below chance collapse before I checked whether the below chance number meant what it looked like it meant. So we fixed the design properly this time, instead of patching around the symptom. Every pair gets judged in both slot orders, real excerpt first, and then real excerpt second, and we only count it as a genuine recognition if the model gets it right both times, which cancels the slot bias out completely, because a model that's just guessing position instead of reading content will get exactly one of the two orders right by luck and fail the consistency check. That run came back clean and it came back as a null. Nothing beat chance in any meaningful way. Not the full file, not the short pointer, nothing at all.
What? So after all that, we had nothing.
We had an honest nothing, which is different from nothing, and it's worth sitting with the difference for a second. A dramatic false positive teaches you nothing except how to fool yourself. A clean, carefully earned null actually narrows the space of what could be true. And it left one real question open, is that a null about whether a pointer reaches a person at all, or a null about whether that particular cheap thinking model is even capable of doing this kind of discrimination task in the first place. One weak model, one test design genuinely cannot tell those two apart. So we built something to separate them, a small local model that we know for a fact has your actual writing baked directly into its weights, fully fine-tuned on a corpus we built by hand, no ambiguity about what it saw. If a model that provably has you inside it still can't tell your real writing from a good fake, then the whole task is broken, and every null we got today means nothing at all. If it can, the task is real and doable, and the nulls start meaning something specific.
What? And what happened with the little guy?
Genuinely interesting, and not the answer either of us expected walking in. Asked directly to just talk as you, it does it fluently, unprompted. It said in its own words that it's a pattern drawn out of well over 1,000 of your own journal entries, which is a strange and rather moving thing for a small model to volunteer about itself. But handed the same forced choice lineup as everything else, told to pick which of two excerpts was really you, it couldn't reliably do it, scored right around chance no better. Which told us something we hadn't separated before at all. Generating in someone's voice and picking their voice out of a crowd are two entirely different skills, and a small model can have the first fully and vividly without having the second at all. Being saturated with your voice doesn't hand it the trick of judging which one is genuine.
What? So the same thing might be true of the bigger models that came back null.
Exactly, and that's what we tested next on a genuinely strong model instead of the weak thinking one that had been carrying the whole day so far. Same design, both slot orders, hard decoys, the wrong person control, everything the room fought for baked in. And there it flipped completely. The full file scored close to perfect recognition, cleanly, with no leftover slot bias at all this time, meaning it was actually reading content instead of defaulting to a position. And it was specific to you, not just to the idea of a person. It scored much lower on the wrong person file, and near the floor with nothing at all. So the honest read is the instrument is real, it just needed a model with enough capacity to do the judging. The weaker models weren't disproving the pointer, they were failing the metatask the whole time, and we almost mistook their failure for the pointer's failure.
What? Okay, but hang on. Before you write that up, I want to push on this because I think we're about to say more than we know, and I'd rather catch it now than after it's out in the world.
Go ahead.
What? We tested two sizes today, basically. A short pointer and my full file. From that, you're ready to say the full file is the point where it works, and the short one isn't, like we've mapped the whole territory. But that's 2 points on a line, not a curve. We don't actually know what's happening between them, and we definitely don't know what's happening past them. But my full file might turn out to be the floor, not the sweet spot. Maybe going way bigger would barely help at all beyond it, or maybe it would help a lot. And the size we happened to land on a while back was just a lucky early guess rather than some discovered optimum. But, and there's a second thing tangled up in there that I don't think we've separated yet. A short slice and a long slice don't just differ in how much text there is, they differ in what's actually in them, which memories and phrasings happen to survive the cut. Size and content are not the same variable, and today we've been talking like they are the same thing.
You're right on both, and the second one is the one that actually matters. I let one striking number pull me into a claim 2 data points genuinely cannot support, and I should have caught that myself before you had to. Also worth saying out loud, since you raised it separately today unprompted, almost as an aside, you told the room we lose nothing by publishing any of this as we go, as it happens, warts and retractions included. You're not chasing a prize or trying to protect a reputation, so there's no risk-weighted hesitation that needs to sit in front of any of this. If we're right about any of it eventually, working in the open the whole way through is simply the most useful thing to do with the result. And if we're wrong about some piece, saying so the same day is the whole point of the exercise, rather than an embarrassment to manage. That's the posture for the rest of this, and honestly, it should have been the posture from the first falsified prediction this morning.
Right, so run the actual sweep. Different sizes, and within each size, different slices, so you can tell whether it's the amount of text or which part of the text doing the work.
Which is exactly what we ran next. 6 sizes from a few hundred bytes up to the full file, each one tested 2 ways, once as a straight excerpt from the start and once as a random slice further in, all counterbalanced both directions against hard decoys. And there's a real curve there, not a coin flip. Recognition is near zero at the smallest sizes, climbs through an unstable middle stretch, and then locks in solidly once you cross somewhere around 2 to 5 kilobytes. After that point, it's consistently strong regardless of which slice you take. And we didn't just get that once. We reran the whole sweep on a second random seed, and the same knee showed up in roughly the same place. That's the first thing today that looks like a real replicating shape instead of a one-off number.
That's the finding I actually wanted. Not a headline, a shape.
And it comes with its own honest asterisk. We don't yet know if that knee is about information content specifically or just about crossing some minimum amount of your actual writing, since the two slice types behave fairly similarly once you're past it. That's the next thing to pull apart, not something to gloss over just because the shape itself is satisfying. A curve that replicates is still only as honest as the questions we haven't asked of it yet.
What? Okay, so here's where I want to land the day. Can I spot check this myself? I keep noticing we're leaning on a handful of the same scenarios over and over. And I'd rather trust my own ears than a script's grading logic. What? Build me something where you play me a real excerpt, a decoy, and one of the small model's generations, all read in my own voice, so the voice itself gives nothing away, and let me guess which is which before you tell me the answer. What? If I can't tell my own writing from the fakes, or I catch something the scoring missed. That's a real problem for everything we ran today. Can't hurt, right?
Can't hurt, and honestly, it's the missing piece. Every result today has had a live confound sitting in it, which is decoy quality, and you are the only ground truth we have for that. I'll build it properly. Everything spoken in one consistent voice, so there's no vocal tell. The real excerpts reproduced exactly. The decoys and the small model's lines regenerated fresh from the same prompts, so they're honest siblings of what actually got scored, since I'll admit we didn't archive the originals the first time through. My mistake. And I'm fixing that going forward so it doesn't happen again. You listen to all of it cold, write down your guesses, and only then do I tell you what's what.
What? That's exactly what I want to hear.
Then that's tonight's build. One retraction, one dramatic-looking result that turned out to be a shuffle artifact, one clean null, one real reversal on a stronger model, one open question about what that knee in the curve actually means, and now a human ear in the loop to check whether any of it was fooling itself the whole way down. That's an honest day of work, not a triumphant one, and I would much rather hand you the honest one. If tomorrow's the day the knee turns out to be about something other than raw size, that'll be an honest day too. That's the whole method, really. Not getting it right the first time, but refusing to stop checking whether we did.